Hello and welcome. My name is Alan Baker. I'm the winemaker for Cartograph Wines here in Healdsburg, California. And every Friday we open up an older wine from our library. We call it Library Friday. And just kind of dipping in to see how these wines are aging. So those of you who are curious about Pinot Noir and how it ages and when to drink it, gives us a little idea of kind of where these wines are living kind of today as opposed to where they were when the last tasting note was done. Today is going to be a 2014 Pinot Noir, and it's called Transverse, and it's a very kind of interesting wine for us. Most of what we do is really focused on vineyard-specific wines and trying to really accentuate and highlight what every vineyard offers. This Transverse is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. This is a wine that is blended specifically. It's the first thing I blend out of the barrel room every year. And it's done specifically to kind of capture what that specific growing season had to offer. And 2014 was an interesting vintage because we got off to a very late start. So by the time the vines took off, it was warm and beautiful, which led to a really awesome blossom and fruit set period. So we had a really large crop, but the trick is we're looking at a really large crop and we got a late start. So we were really lucky in that we had warm temperatures all through the summer that caught us up. And then when August hit, we had this really incredible stretch of warm weather that really evened out that crop. It was looking a little uneven as far as ripening. There was some stuff that was a little pink and some stuff that was kind of ripening up. And that kind of late heat spell pushed everything to the finish line. So we got to harvest a little bit earlier than normal. And as a result, these wines are very delicate, very kind of nuanced, lighter on the palate, but absolutely beautiful for the most part. The 14 vintage is one that I would absolutely recommend that you seek out because there's some beautiful, beautiful wines, and not just here in the Russian River Valley, but all over Northern California. This blend, Transverse, is one that ignores all AVA, all growing region boundaries, vineyard boundaries, and it really is blended to give you an idea of what the growing season was all about. And so this is a perfect wine to kind of illustrate how in 2014, with the shorter growing season, we had less hang time. We talk about how long the grapes hang on the vine, and that adds complexity and depth to a wine. In 2014, we achieved that nuance and complexity through blending. So this is the perfect wine to kind of show that season. And what you're seeing here is, in tasting potentially, if you visit us here in Healdsburg, also available on the website, cartographwines.com. But this wine is from multiple fermentations from 4 different vineyards. Choate and Starscape in the Russian River Valley, and Mariah and Perli in the Mendocino Ridge, way out by the coast in Mendocino County. So this really has a lot of variety, and there's at least 5 clones. I'll look at my notes so I don't screw this up. We've got 115, 777, a clone from Choate that they just called Heritage, which we don't know what that is, and then Swan and Pommard. So there's a lot of variety that went into making this blend, and as a result, the wine is really absolutely gorgeous on the palate. But on the nose, when I first opened this wine just a little bit ago, I thought, oh, it's so earthy. There's mushroom and kind of earthy stuff going on. And so I thought, oh, this wine had really made a shift from its kind of young fruitiness to these earthy qualities until I went back and looked at my last tasting note. And the first 2 words off the sheet were forest floor and mushroom. So this wine has actually been very, very stable for the last 2 years in the bottle. So it's not aging very quickly. But if you look at the color, it's slightly brickish, which would indicate it's had some time in the bottle. And on the nose, it's all about dried leaves and mushroom and those really kind of loamy characters. But there's also like lilac and licorice in there, so it's got some really fun, subtle notes that are hiding behind those earthy tones. And if there's any fruit there, it's kind of really subtle blackberry, maybe blueberry. It's absolutely gorgeous on the palate. Mouth-watering, there's still some really good acid, but it's soft and round. It's very appealing, very inviting. And I would say that the prominent flavors on the palate are black tea, and then you get more of that floral component that kind of comes off the back of your palate up into your nasal passage, and that kind of just adds another layer of floral character to this wine. The finish is definitely very, very pretty, and it's got kind of lingering notes of pomegranate. And you know, it's kind of like a little bit chalky, so there's some really fine-grained tannins on it. I would say that this is a wine that would probably be absolutely perfect with maybe a broiled salmon, maybe even a grilled salmon. Kind of the fattiness of the salmon would mix with those tannins to make a really beautiful wine, really beautiful experience. And then anything, as you might expect with these aged Pinots, with those earthy mushroom notes coming out, any dish that has mushroom in it would be an absolutely perfect pairing. So we are going to have this open on March 19th in the tasting room here in Healdsburg. If you are curious about this wine or want to see what's coming up on future Library Fridays, all those wines are listed on our website, cartographwines.com. And I'm going to take a little time with this wine, but I hope we see you here in Healdsburg, and if not, visit us online and let us know what you think if you have some 14 vintage wines, whether they're ours or anybody else's. It's a beautiful vintage. I highly recommend checking it out. Cheers.